Fox 5 News at noon starts right now.
Scenes like this have become more common in schools across metro Atlanta. Leaders of one school district say they will no longer tolerate brawls like this. You'll hear their plan of action. An APD officer shoots a woman accused of stabbing two people at the Greyhound bus station. We'll have an update on the woman and the people who were stabbed. Thank you for joining us at Fox 5 News at noon. I'm Portia Bruner. We'll have those stories in just a moment. But first, we've got breaking news in Fayette County. That's where deputies have just released the mugshot of the bus driver who struck and killed a high school student. This is Sky Fox 5 video of Stars Mays High School. That's where the student was enrolled. Detectives say that collision happened Thursday night on Brecken Drive. They tell us 60-year-old Robert Lee Stevenson crossed the southbound lane and hit the 16-year-old student. And just the last hour, the Fayette County Sheriff's Office released Stevenson's mugshot. Deputies charged the Sonoya man with vehicular homicide, DUI, and several other charges. We have a crew working to get more details on this tragedy. We'll have more information starting Fox 5 News at 4. And turning to a developing story now, heartbroken family members have renewed their efforts to find the person who murdered David Mack. He's the boy who loved ones found shot to death in a drainage ditch just days before his 13th birthday. And this week marks exactly 1 year since relatives found David's body behind a house not far from his grandmother's Southwest Atlanta home. There have been no arrests in this case, and loved ones say they will not and cannot rest until the person who murdered the 12-year-old is behind bars. Fox 5's Brian Hill just spoke to David's family and joins us live now from Fairburn Road. Brian, it's hard to imagine how much heartache they're still dealing with a year after this horrible discovery.
That's right, and the family tells me their pain has only deepened after recently learning that David was shot 6 times. But they tell me they're also frustrated that knowing that nothing has really happened with this case over the past year and that no one is currently being held accountable. So it was back on February 9th of last year when the family last saw the 12-year-old. He told them he was going to play football with friends, but never came home that night. They reported him missing to police, but the next day they took it upon themselves to do a search and look for him. And that is when they made that horrific discovery, finding his body in that drainage ditch near Shirley Street in Southwest Atlanta. In the year since all of this has happened, the family says they haven't really heard from investigators about where this case lies and how close they are to arresting that killer. They tell me efforts to meet with investigators have fallen on deaf ears. Loved ones say David was severely injured and shot 6 times. They recently got his autopsy report that revealed those horrific details.
Why would you do this? Why would you have that much malice in your heart for a 12-year-old? A 12-year-old, what possibly could a 12-year-old have done to deserve that? I agree. It very much makes it personal.
Now we are reaching out to Atlanta police to see where things lie with this case and how they are working with the Mack family on getting this investigation solved. We'll have that part of the story for you beginning on Fox 5 News at 4, as well as more of our conversation with Mack's heartbroken family. We're live here in Fairburn. Brian Hill, Fox 5 News.
All right, Brian, praying for that family. All right, thank you. Happening today, the 2 men accused in the murder of 8-year-old Sequoia Turner appeared in a Fulton County courtroom. Turner was shot and killed in 2020 when someone opened fire on her mother's car near the Southwest Atlanta Wendy's, where Atlanta police shot and killed Rayshard Brooks. A grand jury returned a 37-count indictment last year against Julian Conley and Jerrion McKinney. And prosecutors say Conley and McKinney were gang members who were involved in a violent demonstration over the Brooks shooting. We have new details in the shooting death of Amir Locke. He's the black man who a Minnesota SWAT team officer shot and killed while detectives conducted a search warrant. Authorities now claim a no-knock warrant was necessary to protect the public and the officers as they looked for guns and drugs during a homicide investigation. Police arrested Locke's cousin in connection with the January 10th raid. Days after Locke's shooting, Locke, whose name was not on the warrant, was asleep on the couch holding a weapon when a SWAT team entered and shot and killed him. Testimony resumes today in the trial of the 3 men accused of violating George Floyd's civil rights. The head of the Minneapolis Police Department's homicide unit testified Thursday. The former officers should have intervened to stop Derek Chauvin when he had his knee on Floyd's neck. Prosecutors say all 3 officers failed to give Floyd medical aid. Defense attorneys say Chauvin was the most senior officer at the scene and argue the others were trained to follow his orders. Back here at home, the GBI has taken the lead in yet another shooting involving a law enforcement officer, this time in downtown Atlanta. That's where an APD officer shot a woman who police say stabbed 2 people at the Greyhound bus station on Forsyth Street. No officers were injured. Fox 5's Mark Teichner has details on the conditions of the victims and the wounded woman.
That female suspect brought here to Atlanta Medical Center, where at last check she was in stable condition.
Had the one person that was injured by the gunfire from police.
An Atlanta police officer shoots a woman outside the downtown Greyhound bus station. Police say around 10:30 Thursday night, a fight broke out inside the station, during which a man and woman were both stabbed. When officers arrived, someone ID'd the alleged knife-wielding woman, who by then had gone outside.
The officer approached that person and started giving verbal commands, and that person was armed at that particular point with 2 knives.
Police tell us the woman refused to put down the knives and started walking closer to the officer.
And as they continued to close the gap of distancing, when they got too close to the officer, it was at that point that he discharged his weapon.
The injured woman was taken into custody. The officer wasn't hurt. Following normal protocol, the GBI has been called in to take over the investigation. Agents could be seen collecting evidence well into the morning hours.
We never want to have to use force, but when we have those situations to where we're placed in those unfortunate situations, we do the best we can to resolve them.
Those stabbing victims, the man and the woman, were brought to Grady for treatment. At last check, they too were in stable condition. Reporting from Atlanta Medical Center, I'm Mark Teichner, Fox 5 News.
Some sad news to report here. The 4-year-old boy in Griffin, wounded in a shooting earlier this month, has passed away. That shooting happened last week at a house on West Poplar Street. Police arrested his mother, Jamesia Lyons, and a second person, James Lee Evans. Detectives have upgraded their charges now to second-degree homicide. No word yet on what led to that shooting. A Maynard Jackson High School student faces serious charges for threatening violence against the school. The Southeast Atlanta High School received several threats via email this week. Those threats prompted soft lockdowns during the school day. School officials say an email sent to families confirms the student faces several charges, including terroristic threats, harassing communications, and disrupting schools. Well, fists are flying, unfortunately, across metro Atlanta schools, and in some cases, students face charges for those fights. Marietta City school officials say they now have a plan to fix the problem. Fox 5's Brooke Zahner has details.
School officials here in Marietta say the problem started when students returned to the classroom after learning virtually during the pandemic. And this week, Marietta City Schools says they've decided to invest in beefing up security to help stop the fights. Videos like this have been circulating on social media. It shows fights breaking out in schools across metro Atlanta. Parents like Heather Harris say the trend is concerning.
The pandemic really didn't help, because it just added chaos to what was already a tough situation with phones and social media.
Now Marietta City School leaders are taking action. This week, the school board approved a plan to spend nearly $100,000 to add more police officers to the middle and high school buildings.
This is not an overreaction per se to arresting children. This is actually about putting more caring adults in hallways, so therefore our students feel safe. They can engage in positive relationships.
Marietta City School Superintendent Dr. Grant Rivera says the district is also adding extra teachers and campus monitors in the hallways to look for trouble. Some parents like Heather say it's a good idea.
What it takes to let kids feel safe and kids know that they're going to be held accountable for their actions, bring it.
The district says it will not hesitate to take action if more fights break out. Superintendent Rivera says if a student is suspended for a fight, they won't put them back in the classroom before having a sit-down conversation about what happened.
And before we put you back in class and assume that everything's okay, we're going to sit a child down and try to help them learn from this situation, so therefore they can be better when they come out of it.
Of course, violence like this doesn't just impact students, it also affects teachers and staff. And Marietta City Schools says they want to hear from teachers about their thoughts on school safety improvements. That's the latest here in Marietta. I'm Brooks Honor, Fox 5 News.
All right, we've got a beautiful day in store for you. Lots of sunshine, temperatures like yesterday, upper 60s to near 70. Enjoy it, though, because we've got a lot of cold air that's going to be spilling in out of Canada. Take a look at the map here. Big dip in the jet stream once we get into Sunday is going to bring a cold front through. Temperatures by then will be in the 40s. Right now, we're sitting at 65 degrees, so we're already a little bit warmer than we were yesterday. You can see 64 over in Athens, 63, Thomaston 63 right now in Rome. But the winds, they're starting to pick up, too. We got wind gusts over 20 miles an hour as of this hour, but those winds will start to die down later on tonight. Tomorrow could be a little bit breezy at times too, as these frontals, two cold fronts start to approach the area. But there's a look at the hour by hour forecast. Once again, upper 60s to near 70 today. I'll have the complete forecast for you coming up in just a few minutes.
Jeff, thank you. Well, coming up on Fox 5 News at noon, the woman you see right here helped a cult leader, Charles Manson, murder a couple in their house decades ago. Stay with us to find out whether a California high court will now let the 72-year-old woman walk free.
For being so effing stupid and crooked that you got caught in the middle of this massive election fraud.
Fulton County's commission chairman says this is just one of many very serious threats he's received since the 2020 November election. Coming up, you'll hear why he says those threats will not stop him from fighting for fairness in state's election process. But first, loved ones say they won't rest until the person who murdered a couple inside their Southeast Atlanta home is behind bars. Hear what they have to say about the vicious crime next.